hectare Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park, 2.2 million hectares of which is the Kruger National Park, 60,000 hectares of which is the Sabi Sands, and a small portion of that is where we're going to be exploring this morning at Djuma. We are Wild Earth TV, and behind the camera we have Brian, who is trussed up like a Michelin man. We also have Scott, who's relearning how to use the camera. Because Brian has decided selfishly that he needs a holiday after 3 months without a break. Then on the other vehicle we have the inimitable Brent and Andrew, who is also looking like Freddie Mercury for some reason this morning. And the control room we have Eugene and Nikki. And out here we have the wonders of the African wilderness, and that's what we're going to try and showcase to you today. Brent is following up on some lion calls that we heard early this morning, and they're quite far north of the reserve we're on, so we might be lucky with them. We're going to head off to the east of the reserve, to one of the water holes, simply because we're hoping to pick up some tracks perhaps of a female leopard or a male leopard. We did have tracks or alarm calls last night from some impala, so we're hoping there's some leopard in the area. But you never know what will happen. Maybe not a lot, and maybe all sorts of things. So as we go, you're very welcome. We're very happy to have you with us. Google apparently said the temperature today was 61 degrees Fahrenheit or 16 degrees centigrade. This is a flagrant untruth. It is in fact about minus 350 degrees Fahrenheit. We are on our way. Let's see what we can find. The sun is just coming up, not where we are because we're in a bit of a depression. And the dawn chorus is in full cry. We've got some grey hornbills calling north of us. We had a whole lot of guinea fowl yelling to the south, and they were being harassed by an African hawk eagle. And please remember, if you have any comments or questions, use the Twitter handle hashtag SafariLIVE or the email questions@wildearth.tv. There. Did you see that, Brian? Something came out of the tree there. No, not out of the tree. It's a duiker. It's gone, I'm afraid. Duikers don't, in fact, climb trees. They must have come off the termite mound on which the tree was growing. Just going to get to a high point here, and then we're going to turn off and listen to a bit of the dawn chorus, and you can have a look at the sun coming up. Sort of quintessential African theme. It would seem that Brent has not managed to find the tracks of the lions, so he's going to follow up on Shadow and her cub from last night, and we'll continue this way and see if we don't find anything crossing into the reserve. Gently get us to a spot. Say when, Brian? How's that? Yeah. Okay, we're just going to try and have a listen now, and I'll tell you about what I can hear. Got a little firefinch calling off to the left. A Cape turtle dove saying, work harder, to the north. Southern black tit. Psst, 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 psst. Beautiful black-headed oriole in the distance. Black-crowned chagra. That was me, not the chagra. So all around there's a sense of expectation and a sense of freshness of the new day. And like I've said to you before, one of the joys of being out here is the smell of the bush, which unfortunately we can't transfer to you just yet with the limitations of our technology. But there's a very fresh, earthy smell and a really nice feeling of the warm air coming off the sun already. Ryan, can you try and get that bird over there? Yeah. On a tree, just in front of us. I don't know how long it'll stay there. What is that? Tiny little thing. All puffed out, I can't actually identify it in this light. Well, I'm going to use the light as an excuse. Binoculars are misting up. He's a tiny little thing and he's puffed out because it's freezing cold, so he's trapping as much air as he can underneath his... He's gone. Underneath his feathers. Alright, so we'll carry on. It's enough to warm the soul, isn't it? So now as we head down into the dip, the temperature is going to drop. You'll see the camera start to shake as Brian starts to shake with cold. What we call shivering thermogenesis.
Morning, everyone. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari. My name's Brent, and I've got Andrew on camera with me, and I'm sure James did all the other introductions. Very chilly this morning. We heard lions calling to the northwest just before 6 a.m. this morning, but unfortunately, I thought they might be a bit further than our boundary, and they were. So we checked the road around there, and unfortunately, no tracks, so I think they are further north than us. So we're busy checking this area around Impala Plains at the moment, just looking for tracks, listening to see what's out there. Hopefully we have some luck in this area. If not, our plan is we might move into Arathusa for a bit this morning and see what's happening there. Well, anyway, let's get going. Look here. Make sure nothing's snuck past us. Just hyena tracks. Quick look on the other side. And just emerald spotted wood dove tracks. Very crisp morning. those short grass areas on the seep lines. Whenever you see very short grass like this, it means that there's water moving, or actually, and these trees, there's water moving under the ground. So you have good quality grasses. So you generally have a lot of grazers in this area, and where there's a lot of food, there's a lot of things that eat the food. So always a good area to look for predators. Oh, there's that lilac-breasted roller up in the tree, catching the first rays of the sun. Off he goes. Don't think there's much warmth in that just yet. Lovely soft light. The sun's just peeking up over the horizon behind us, creating this very beautiful light and almost pastel colors in the sky. Oh, isn't that pretty? Male kudu. Where's he off to? It's going to move forward. There we can see him through the bush. Maybe a bit further back. He'll pop up on the other side of that bush. Out for an early morning breakfast. Thinks it's too early to be on camera, avoiding us. Magnificent time of the day. So for those of you who might be new or just joining us, we are on a live African safari, and we're also interactive. You can ask us questions. You can do that by emailing questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter. check carefully towards the big Balanites tree. If we have no luck with tracks here, I think we're going to start heading further west. There's the sun peeking through the clouds. Copy. Thank you.
Mobile station.
Okay, guys, just gonna have to use the radio. Morning. No updates so far. Just that there was an audio of Ngala in Buffalo, probably north and probably a bit east and north from the Buffalo sign with the Gari Buffalo cut line. So you'll hear the radio that Andrew has dubbed R2D2. Copy, good luck.
Central,
Hi Pam, welcome to the Sunrise Safari. Pam would like to know, are the kudu in rut now also? No Pam, kudu will breed throughout the year, so there's no specific rutting time. They will only go after the female when she's in estrus. So kudu do not rut at specific times of the year like impala do and wildebeest. So you'll hear us talk on this beeping digital radio from time to time, and that's just to communicate with all the other vehicles and guides out there to try and make sure as a team we can find you the most animals possible. Always very important to check these road junctions very carefully for tracks. And as I say that, we have a fresh set of leopard tracks by the looks of things. Looks to be a female. I'm just going to switch off and show you the track cat. While we show you the track, I'm just going to listen carefully. Oh, there we go. Okay, let's go have a look if we can find the leopard. Nkonzo of female Ingwe heading north from Balanites Junction with Zoe's, north on Zoe's. I'm following up. As I was saying, these junctions of roads are very important to check because the leopards and lions like to use our roads as sort of highways, nice big game paths through the bush. So when tracking, you want to be looking ahead. You don't want to always be looking straight at the tracks. If I feel like I've lost the tracks, then I'll stop and look closely. But what I try to do is pick up the tracks in front of us, just see where the sand has changed. These look particularly fresh, so I'm quite excited about them. I haven't had a really nice set of fresh tracks to follow for a while. I seem to be a bit late most of the time. They seem to be moving in the wee hours of the morning. But these are literally steaming, shining off the road. Well, they were. Oh, they're still there.
At the moment, I'm on Central Road. With green Yoni, I've done green Canty boundary.
So the tracks are still here?
Line Road, Madach Gate, and now Central. Okay, so I'll check.
I don't see tracks now. Ah, they're there.
Okay, copy. I'm also following up.
Andrew, keep your eyes open. There's also quite a lot of hyena tracks on the road, so sometimes that can make looking for the leopard a little more difficult to decipher who's who and where's where. Yeah, let's have a look a bit more closely over here.
Nations are moving along the screen, Yoni, slowly mobile in a northeast direction.
Just give me a second. I'm just going to jump out of the car and check that those tracks haven't left the road. So all I'm seeing at the moment are civet and hyena tracks. So I'm just going to turn the vehicle around so you can still see me, but I don't want to drive back down there. It makes it much harder to see where the tracks left the road and to get a direction to which way they're going, so we know where to look next. I'll be back in 2 ticks. Still only a hyena and civet tracks here, so I'm just going to check a little bit further down the road. Sorry, she left the road over there, and I can't actually see where the exact track left the road, but a general direction was off to the east. And also, being a leopard, if we have a look through the bush over here, there's a nice termite mound, and I think she's probably headed to that termite mound to have a look, and then she might have continued on. So we're going to go around and see if she cuts back into the road. Otherwise, we're going to check the next road that's at the base of this block. So hopefully these tracks are really fresh. So fingers crossed. Going to be tracking. We're going to cross over to James to see what he's got and what he's up to. Just a little secret, guys, don't remind him about how short he is. He's very, very sensitive about his height, because if you imagine when we did that giraffe comparison yesterday, if it was 3 me's, imagine how many Jameses it would have been.
Welcome back to Wendy's morning, everyone. We've come to Buffalo's Hook Dam. That means Buffalo's Corner Dam. Bit of an odd name, really. There's a hippo in it, which we're just going to have a quick look at. We haven't found anything spectacular crossing the boundary onto the reserve. But I must say the atmosphere today is one of profound peace. And the colors are magnificent, as you can see. This old boy would have spent much of the night out of the water, trying to find some grazing. Obviously, for the grazers, this time of year becomes quite difficult, because, especially after a drought year, because there's very little in the way of fresh grass left, and as the winter progresses, we may only get rains again in November. You can imagine how when you look around, you can see how dry the bush is already, but you can imagine how dry and dusty it'll be then. So there's been a very, very little really good rain this year, and so already things are starting to look a little bit dry. He will spend much of his time in the water today, You can see him just eyeing us out through his right eye. Perfectly designed so that he can breathe, look and hear without exposing anything else of his body. If you've got good speakers where you're sitting, it might be a good idea to just turn them up and shut your eyes and see if you can absorb some of the amazing peace of this African dawn that we've experienced. Try and hear the individual birds. There's a grey-headed sparrow just behind us in the knobthorn tree going. Crested Franklin in the background. Right, so our plan from here, once we've finished eyeing out this old hippo, is going to be to head towards the eastern boundary and drive along sort of parallel, see if we can't pick up some tracks. So far it's been a pretty quiet morning for everyone out here at the moment. Brent, I'm sure as you know, is after Shadow and her cub, and we're going to let him spend some time doing that, and while we do that we'll go and see what other bits of the ecology and amazingly interesting things we can find here. There was a dove flying over my head, and so on we will go. They go. And they're called a puffback shrike because they've got a sort of large white pom-pom that sits on the back of their underneath the wings, and they can splay it out when they're displaying for potential mates. Quite glad I don't have to wear a white pom-pom on my backside in order to get a date. Although, you know, one must do what one can. Kerry, welcome to the morning game drive. You'd like to know how low will the water levels get? I'd going to assume you mean in the dam here. This dam could dry out. I mean, it's not impossible. It's quite big, but it probably won't dry out. I mean, in terms of telling you how low it will get, I'd say let's say the dam would probably get to about half the size that it is now in a dry year, but that will depend on when we next get rain, and I suspect we'll probably next get rain, like I say, in November or October. There's always an expectation from September because the clouds start to build over in the west, over the Drakensberg Mountains, and we can see lightning going from the high points here, but often they tease us, those clouds, a bit like the politicians of South Africa, and we only get the sort of rains here in October, often into late November, and that's why the impala drop their lambs sort of late November. I'm just going to show you a picture of that bird and his pom-pom. You can see there's the puffback shrike, and that's the little pom-pom that the male will sort of splay out from underneath his wings when he's trying to attract a girlfriend or two. That's the puffback shrike, now called the blackback puffback. They keep changing the names. Highly disconcerting. So as we drive along, you can look around and you can see, well, you'll see on your monitor, you'll see that as the sun comes up, the color becomes quite obvious. And you can see the green that there still remains on the trees, but as far as the grass goes, there's almost no color left. And at this time of the year, that's not entirely unusual, but you would also have some patches of green if you had a decent rainy year. It's always the best time of the day, this and late evening, to take photographs because the light is so much softer. It can really get very harsh during the day at the lower latitudes where we find ourselves. Tracks of hyenas from the night, and like I said the other day, they will often forage on their own, so you quite often will find a single track moving along, especially if it's a male. The males tend to go out on their own. Have a look at this knobthorn tree here, Brian. Scott. So as you can see here, the bark has been stripped off. This is an old injury, but the tree is surviving just fine. But in a dry year, especially like this, things like knobthorns will be at particular risk because elephants will seek out the wettest food that they can throughout the winter time, and often that comes on the inner cambium layer on a knobthorn tree like this. And the issue with the knobthorns is that unlike marulas, which have adapted somehow to their bark doesn't strip off like these do. They've sort of evolved with elephants in an evolutionary race, and with the marula tree, elephants can only take off small chips of bark at a time. But on these, if they get their tusks into the bark here, they can pull off huge strips, and they can ring bark the tree almost immediately, and then the tree will die. And they often also push these over to try and get at the last vestiges of green that sit up in the top there. I'm going to tell you a little story about this tree too when Scott's finished showing us the knobthorn. He's finished now. I've no doubt that you've heard of this tree. This is the buffalo thorn, or the Ziziphus mucronata. And it's a very important tree to African people from probably down in, say, the extent of its range is probably the end of the Eastern Cape, where you'll find it, and up into probably northern Ethiopia. I think that's as far as its range goes. In fact, it's mentioned, I think this tree is actually mentioned in the Bible a few times, so it probably goes up into the Middle East. Ziziphus mucronata. And the reason it's important is that it doesn't, it's an important food source, and you can eat the fruits, you can grind them up for coffee. But the most important thing about this tree is when someone dies away from home, there are a lot of tribes or African peoples that believe that the spirit needs to be returned back to its birthplace. And this tree forms a crucial part of that story. So somebody will go to where the person has died, and even if that person has been buried where they died, and they will go to the place where they died, and they will take this tree, and they'll take the thorns, they'll take a branch like this, and they'll do some form of ceremony where they try and sort of wrap the spirit into the buffalo thorn tree. And then they will travel back to the home. But crucially, what they will do is they will book a ticket, a spare ticket for this branch. So you might find yourself on a bus traveling through Zimbabwe one day with sitting next to a buffalo thorn branch and another person there. And that person has booked a special seat for the spirit of his long dead relative. And then the tree will be taken out and returned to the home and probably placed on the grave of the person that died, and in so doing complete the cycle of bringing the spirit back home. So it's an incredibly important tree out here. That's the buffalo thorn. I've heard of people doing that from overseas. So if somebody from a rural area here loses a relative, and that relative goes overseas and dies there, they'll take a piece of Zizifoot all the way to the States or to Scandinavia or wherever you happen to be, maybe in Papua New Guinea, and they'll inter the spirit and bring it home on that tree. The belief being that the spirit cannot rest peacefully unless it is at home. Tracks of an unusual mammal on the road, honey badger. I had a girlfriend once who had the character of a honey badger. She was terrifying. Short. Compared to the giraffe, I am very short. Yes, that is correct. I'm 5 foot and 8 inches tall. So that's how tall I am. I comfort myself in the knowledge that Tom Cruise is 5'4". At something there, I'm not sure if it was anything. Still from that dead log there, Scott. I think it was a Franklin jumping off. No, don't worry about it. Sorry about that. Simon from Australia, welcome. Not sure what time it is where you are. I suppose it depends where in that vast country you happen to find yourself. But it's lovely to have you with us. And you'd like to know that certain trees that animals eat sort of specifically or only. The answer to that, Simon, is not really, but there certainly are certain species that certain animals will specialize in, or that they will select if they can. So, trying to think of a good example. Elephants will certainly prefer knobthorns as the winter time comes. Think of the other browsers. Things like kudu and nyala and bushbuck will have their favorite kinds of trees when they're available. And elephants are tend to be very selective. They have a very Catholic diet, which means they'll eat just about anything when they can, but they do select specific creepers. I've watched them walk through huge swathes of vegetation and pull out very specific creepers, probably dependent on whatever their nutritional needs are. Monkeys on the reserve. There are definitely plenty of monkeys, and also some baboons. Those are the two, them and the bush babies are the primates that we get here. And we don't see them that often in the bush because they're often hiding, but we see them quite a lot from camp, which is unusual. Or not unusual, which is quite comical. We had a whole lot trying to raid the camp yesterday, and they tend to focus on the camps because they're extremely clever and they're able to learn how to steal and get into houses and find food sources that they wouldn't get otherwise, especially as it gets drier. Now we're just going to stop here and look over to the west there. Now you can't really see in the distance. It's quite hazy. It's hazy because it's cold, and so the people that live on the outside of the reserve are burning fires for warmth and for cooking. There's very little in the way. There is electricity in those areas, but at the same time, it's quite expensive, and there's probably up to a 60% unemployment rate in some of the areas outside the reserve. And so the haze is hiding what I wanted to show you here, which is the Drakensberg Mountains off to the west. And we call this area the low veld, which means low land. And that comes from the fact that it's probably only between 300 and 400 meters above sea level. And over the Drakensberg there is what we call the high veld, or the highland, where we find the major economic center of Johannesburg. It's not necessarily the most attractive city in the world, but without it, I can tell you South Africa wouldn't function at all. Probably about 9 million people living on the borders of the Kruger National Park, which just sounds like a lot, but it's not when you consider the area that the Kruger Park represents. It is bigger than Israel and bigger than Wales. So in the winter time like this, you'll often find that the haze obscures the mountains, but at night we sometimes can see the sun going down over the mountains. On we go. His hole, or her hole. You can just see here take this out. There's the shell of a beetle. Don't worry, I haven't stolen their food. It doesn't actually, there's nothing in it anymore. So what happens is that this beetle, hapless as it may be, has flown into the web, and what the spider does is that they'll all come out, they'll wrap it up, tie it up, bite it, inject their venom into it. And what that venom does, it's a very powerful enzyme, and it dissolves basically the internal workings of the beetle. So it'll dissolve the organs and the gut and everything, and turn the internal parts of the beetle into a sort of nutritious mush that they'll then come back late. That's why a spider will wrap up something like this. They bite it, wrap it up, and then leave it while the venom works. And they'll come back and sort of suck out the juices, leaving only the shell or the carapace as we've got it here. So this has got nothing, no nutrition, there's nothing in this at all. It's entirely hollow. And as I told you the other day, sorry, I'm making it difficult for you to follow me. As I told you the other day, these community nest spiders tend to, when they're hungry and nothing has flown into the web, they tend to eat the males. The females tend to make meals of their husbands, which isn't very nice. But, you know, if you're a spider, you're a spider. Sitting on a tree that's called the caterpillar bush, or Ormocarpum tripocarpum. I try and say that 20 times before I go on air every morning. Ormocarpum tripocarpum. Raisha, your question, there are bits of hazy memory coming back to me. There used to be, I think that Cassia petitiana used to be known as Senna petitiana, which has got a yellow flower. And I mean, I'm going to check this up for you, but I think the pods are a lot thinner. I think they have quite a strong smell to them, so they don't get nearly as big as the Shambok pod or as the long-tailed Cassia pods. And I also don't think that the tree gets as large. I think it tends to be more of a bush than a big tree. But like I say, I will check up for you. Gerda, thank you for your unarachnophobic question. You'd like to know how many spiders could be in that web. The answer is not sure. I've seen, that's a pretty good size one. I've seen them about a quarter that size, and I've seen them up to 10 times that size. So it just depends on the web. That one, I would say, from having looked at the little holes there, they're probably up to 150, 200 spiders in that little nest. Did we get those birds? Maybe no, they've gone. Never mind. Bit of a bird party going on here. Dee, Slightly more arachnophobic question. Would like to know, how do we tell if a spider is venomous or not? The answer is, if you're out here alone without a book, you don't until it bites you. But we know that there's no actual way, not like with a scorpion, where you can tell if it's venomous or not, or how venomous it is from the size of its tail in relation to its pincers. You've got to know the spiders pretty well to know. Out in South Africa, we have very few dangerous spiders. One is the button spiders, the violent spider, and the six-eyed crab spider are the ones you've got to watch out for here. None of them, I mean, they could possibly cause death, but it's highly unlikely. So everything else you can be pretty sure is pretty harmless. Some of them will give you a bit of a bite that will sting, but won't have any lasting effects. So some of our big jumping spiders can give you a bite, but it won't make any difference or won't harm you at all. And some of the most intimidating spiders we have are the golden orb web spiders that come in the summer after the rain. And they hang over the roads. Females get to enormous size like that, and they're brightly black and yellow and white and orange, and they look terrifying, but they're completely harmless. We haven't picked up any tracks yet of anything particularly astonishing, so we're just going to continue meandering down in a southerly direction towards another waterhole. Bob, you'd like to know if we have any, I'm just going to move forward, Bob, if we have any trees that have seeds that are carried in the wind. The answer is yes, absolutely. The most common tree we get here is this Combretum apiculatum, or red bush willow, and their seeds, all of the Combretum seeds, are four-winged, specifically so that they can be dispersed by the wind. They fly in the wind. I don't know if you can hear that batelier calling off to the northeast of us. I can't see him. There might be a nest nearby. Oh, there might. I think I can see a nest. It was identified by Scott. I didn't know that call.
This is where I saw 3 the other day.
Okay. Scott says he saw 3 here the other day. Awesome.
Welcome back, everyone. We've been checking this area extensively for this female leopard that tracks we've been following. So far, no luck, but I'm very confident she is close by, somewhere in this vicinity. So we've done a couple of loops around the area. Now we've just been sitting here listening very carefully, trying to pick up any alarm call. Even the tiniest bird sometimes can let you know where a big predator like a leopard is. Andrew's just going to show you now. The last tracks went off Zoe's Road into this area between Quarantine, where we're sitting now. And you can have a look in that vast pile of bush in there. I went for a walk in that area. I found one track in the block, but unable to find her. So we came around here to the eastern side of this block, and we've just been waiting and listening. Nothing yet. But I know she's here somewhere. She's definitely here somewhere. And sometimes when you look at views like that, it's almost impossible to believe that we find leopard as often as we do. But we shall continue on. We heard a Nyala alarm calls just after we closed down last night near the Buffelshoek boundary junction with the Mvubu Road. So we're just going to go through there, see if we can find any tracks or anything else. And then I think we're definitely going to come back into this area a little bit later and try work it again. Hopefully she's traversed through the block, and hopefully the Impala or Nyala or Kudu or something spot her, and they can shout, "Leopard! Leopard!" and we can get right there. But let's continue. Warming up nicely. Still quite cool, so definitely think there's a possibility that the cats are still moving. Probably in the next month, that young male's going to have bigger feet than his mom, and around it by a year, much bigger feet than his mom. So it's around this time, at this age, where they sort of start overtaking their mothers, and will make it a little bit easier to determine who's been walking around. Virginia from Kentucky. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Virginia would like to know, do leopards eat snakes? Well, Virginia, yes. I've seen leopard eat python quite a few times. I've never really seen them eat any of the smaller snake species. They tend to avoid the venomous ones. I've seen a leopard avoid a spitting cobra when it found it, but I have seen them eat python. So yes, they do eat snakes. And the one occasion that female leopard killed a python, that was probably about 4 meters long, so I think that's around 14 foot. And it was too heavy for her to lift up into the tree. So she actually had to eat quite a bit of it before she was able to put it in the tree to keep it away from other predators. Have a bit of a quiz for you guys. Let me just get into it. Yeah. Oops. So I asked this tree a couple of days ago, the one to the left, and there it is, sitting on top of a termite mound, which we actually discussed the other day, succession and termite mounds. How once the termite mound is disused, a lot of trees will take over But the big tree sitting on top, there we go. Nice bright green leaves on it. And as I said, they have a very bright crimson flower during the wet season. And this tree baffled a few of you guys for a little while, so I thought we'd do it again. So who can tell me which tree this is? And you can send your answers to questions at wildearth.tv or use the hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter. So often found on top of termite mounds, also around the edge of drainage lines and watercourses. So which tree is this? One of the big evergreen tree species we get in this area. At the little water hole in front of Gallagher Camp. See if anything's here. Not much happening here. A very productive area for leopards this year, so always worth having a squiz. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Anna Marie would like to know, do we get black mambas in the area? We do, Anna Marie. They are actually quite common. We're not going to see too many as it's getting a bit colder now. But yes, we do see black mambas from time to time. And they are one of the more common venomous snakes that we get in the area. Stop and listen for a second in the drainage. Not much happening. It seems like the leopards are playing tricks with us at the moment. I was actually going to go check the hyena den this morning, but someone else has already gone there and no one's at home, so maybe definitely a plan for this afternoon.
Welcome back, everyone. Excuse the hushed tones with which I'm addressing you, but as you can see, we're very close by, just underneath a female batelier, one of the most spectacular eagles of the Kruger Park, or any protected area in South Africa. When we arrived here, her mate was sitting right next to her, and he took fright at the car and flew off, and she's remained here. He's just on a dead tree in front of us. The batelier is probably my favorite eagle. And as I've told the story to some of you before, they focus on eating carrion, but they will take the odd snake or reptile on their own. And their unique design with a short tail allows them to fly much lower than any of the other eagles or vultures. So with their short tail, they reduce drag, and they're able to glide at a far lower altitude than, say, the vultures, and that allows them to get to the carcasses before any of the other birds, eat quickly, and then fly away. Their main competition for that sort of strategy is the tawny eagle, but even they can't compete with the flying ability of the batelier. So they do sacrifice some agility with the lack of a tail, but they have the ability to fly far lower or glide far lower than any of the other raptors. Oh, great. That was extremely impolite. You can see from the back of the feathers that it's a female. The males don't have that secondary sort of white patch under the browny grey. And in flight, obviously, it's very easy to see. There she goes. Oh. Isn't that magnificent? Watch a bird like that fly. We're just going to try and sneak around the corner and see if we can't get a better view. She's quite confiding, so I'm going to keep going. The batelier in Shangaan is Shimungwe. Most of the Shangaan words for birds are onomatopoeic, but Shimungwe isn't, and I'm not sure where it comes from, but it's a lovely word. And in the background you can hear a robin calling. Also hear some monkeys' alarm calling way in the distance. We'll probably turn and head that way. You can also hear the bearded woodpecker doing his territorial tap in the background. What we're going to do now is we can hear those monkeys' alarm calling quite a distance away to the north. And that we did find some old leopard tracks heading in that direction a little while back. So our plan from here is going to be to backtrack a little and then head north up towards where those monkeys are alarm calling. But they are quite a distance away. Okay, a wonderful sighting. The other monkeys there. Basically directly behind us there. So should you see a road that you think we should take, just let me know. Hold on tight. Lost me here, piece. We're going to drive relatively quickly. Big jackalberry sticking up there, somewhere around there. Okay. Sounds like in the drainage line, the major drainage line that runs through the middle of the reserve. Turn off periodically to see if we can hear them. They never fail to amuse. We're going to head straight down this road. I wonder if any of you know what the collective noun for a warthog is. You may not Google it. While we concentrate on trying to find whatever was making those monkeys upset, we're going to go across to Brent. I'm not sure what he's found, but I'm sure he'll tell you something interesting.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm here with one of my favorite creatures in the bush, the dwarf mongoose. This is not a group we normally see. That's why I'm speaking so quietly. They're on a road that is not very often used. So it's taken quite a bit of coaxing and keeping still and talking quietly to get them to come out. And it's perfect timing. It's just warm enough now for them to come out of their termite mound that they've been sleeping in for the evening and enjoy the morning sun and warm up before they head out foraging. So I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the moment, creeping out of various different little holes. I'm sure there's quite a few more. Six now. They are such delightful little creatures. 7. So if we sit quietly, they might come out, start grooming. At the moment, they're very, very curious about us. That's why we won't move too quickly or speak too loudly. As I said, this is not one of our normal sort of dwarf mongoose spots, but this is a really fantastic termite mound. Nice big one. Lots of little holes for them to escape. Are still very much focused on us, but what I'm hoping is if we sit here for long enough, they will start grooming, possibly a bit of playing. So really, really wonderful creatures. Wow, 1, 2, 10. 10 that I can see now. Incredibly agile little creatures. So often with these dens that they'll choose, they will definitely have a very good open sun-facing side for this the morning basking. So that one in frame at the moment is the closest to us. But it looks like, see, they're a little bit more trusting. They're turning their backs to us a bit more. Might sort of get going with a bit of, oh, I think if we go up and out to the right, and that sort of pile of mongoose there, I think if there's going to be some playing and whatnot, I think that little group there look like the ones that are going to be the culprits. But they are definitely very interested in us still. Hi Dee, welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Dee would like to know how many mongoose will live together and do they fight each other? Well, Dee, in this area, most groups of dwarf mongoose are sort of between 10 and 15, but there are recorded groups of over 30 in certain areas, and that will be in areas where food is plentiful. In some areas, they don't often get as big as 10. There will be some fighting within the business, but generally not too much. But if they were to come across another group of dwarf mongoose in their territory, that fight would be very violent. And I would not like to have other groups foraging in their area. I would probably guess we can see 10 now. There's probably at least another 5 or 6 we can't see. I'd say this group is anywhere from 10 to 20. There could be some more around the backside of the termite mound that we're not seeing at the moment. So there we go, they are moving closer to each other. So we might definitely see some grooming shortly. Oh, very, very cute. They have quite a varied diet. So it also depends very much on what area the mongoose occur, what's their diet is made up of. But a lot of their diet is made up of grubs of the Coloptera beetle species, so the ground beetles and scarab beetles, dung beetles. They will really like dung beetle grubs. It'll be a huge meal for them, and that makes up in certain parts around about 33% of their diet, and another very large section of their diet, more for this area where we are, is termites. So about also around the 35% range of their diet, specifically in this area, is made up of termites. And then the rest of the diet is very, very varied, made up by quite a lot of crickets and grasshoppers, also centipedes, if they can, small lizards, geckos, small snakes, small mice, and to a lesser degree, caterpillars and other grubs. Hi Tula, welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Tula would like to know, do they live in this termite mound or they're just visiting? Tula, this will be one of their homes. They will have multiple termite mounds within their territory, which is quite small. Probably around 2 hectares. I'll double check that for you. Maybe even a bit smaller. But they'll have multiple of these termite mounds that they will use differently. So they might forage from one to another during the day and then sleep at the one that they get to later. Another quite interesting thing is that they are not water dependent, and possibly one of the reasons for this is so they sort of stay out of competition with the bigger social mongoose species in this area, which is the banded mongoose. But obviously seasonally, when the water is available during the wet season, they will, but they do look really funny when they're trying to drink. They're very clumsy and don't seem to be used to it. You'll probably find they get a lot of their moisture from dew on the grass in the mornings and from what they eat. So they're not very adept at drinking or lapping. So what quite often happens is they sometimes will even immerse their whole heads into a puddle, which is very, very funny. But the most common way they've been seen to drink is to dip their paws into the water and then lick them. So a non-water dependent species. Tammy. Tammy would like to know how the social hierarchy of a mongoose works. They are very similar to, sort of say, wild dogs, whatnot. There's an alpha pair that will do the breeding, and then the rest will look after the youngsters. So how different mongooses move between different troops, obviously to create genetic diversity. When a new individual comes into the area and into an established troop, strangers of either sex or age were accepted by the troop, but after some initial sorting of social status, and that would have been by fighting, and sometimes not even fighting, just being very aggressive towards and seeing whether they stood up or behaved in a submissive manner. But there are serious sun lovers, and are these sort of permanent residences they have throughout their territory. In the early morning and late afternoon, it's quite common to find them doing exactly what they're doing now. And if we go down to the bottom one, it's almost fallen asleep in the sun, letting everyone else keep a lookout for predators. Oh, no, heads up now, but it was having a nice little doze, enjoying that morning sun. Oh, some nice stretching. Using the termite mound as a nice big stretching post. Creeping up on the others. See, they are starting to move a little bit more now, and you can notice I'm speaking a little bit louder. They've become a lot more relaxed with our presence. Hi, Catherine, or Leon from Texas. Catherine would like to know, what makes the termite mound so hard? Catherine, it's the saliva of the termites. It's almost like a cement, and when they're building it, they use that saliva to stick the different sand particles together, and then it becomes very hard with time. So that is what makes termite mounds so hard. Hi, Anna Marie. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Anna Marie would like to know, do they always live in abandoned termite mounds, or do they sometimes dig their own shelters? Even though they are incredibly good diggers for their size, they will excavate inside the termite mound, but they normally almost exclusively live in abandoned termite mounds. I have seen them sometimes in abandoned or in fallen down dead trees that they will use if there's lots of nice hollows inside the tree. But the majority of the time will be in abandoned termite mounds. Andrew and I are actually behaving quite a lot like the mongooses at the moment. We're also enjoying the morning sun and not moving, having the odd stretch. Hi, Janet from Boston. Welcome on Drive with us, the Sunrise Drive. Janet in Boston would like to know why termites leave their mounds. There's a couple of reasons. Janet, the queen might die and there's no successor, or they might have had a raid by a predatory species, like an aardvark might have dug in through and actually even got to that part of the chamber, or things like a specific species of ant called a matabele ant that will actually march in columns and attack termite colonies. But to be completely honest, I'm not 100% sure. I know there's various different reasons, but sometimes maybe they've just sort of, the time has come and they don't, or maybe on these type of termites, maybe they've exhausted the farming capabilities on the inside of the mound. But that's a very interesting question. I'm definitely going to have to read up a bit more about that, Janet. No one's dozing again. Had a late night last night. Doesn't want to wake up this morning. And then wakes up as soon as the camera's on. Oh, and there you go, head's heavy again. Oh. Hi, Liz. Liz, welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Liz would like to know if these are dwarf mongoose, are they larger sized mongoose? Yes, from the social mongoose species in this area, but we don't really get them too much here. They prefer the sort of bigger rivers down in the south of the reserve. Hello, there's some grooming about to go on there. And the larger mongoose species, that social mongoose species around this in the Sabi Sands is the banded mongoose. I have not seen any banded mongoose since I've been here. They do tend to prefer bigger riverine areas. We also have slender mongoose in this area, which is a solitary mongoose species, which is also quite a bit bigger. And we also have the biggest mongoose species we get in this area is the white-tailed mongoose, which are often in pairs. But of the gregarious mongoose, dwarf mongoose is the one we see the most often on Juma and Arathusa. So they don't leave these residences, mongoose apartments, until the sun is very well up and warm. So even though it is quite warm now and the sun is up, I think they're probably not going to move from here for another half an hour to 45 minutes at least before they set off foraging. They really do enjoy their morning sunbathe. Hi, Maggie from Kansas. Welcome on Sunrise Safari. Maggie would like to know, when they're foraging, do they share their food or is it each for their own? Maggie, I've seen females, sometimes they will with younger animals, but mostly once they're older, it's each to their own. And they will defend whatever they've found quite quite strongly against other members of the business. We have a curious one heading towards us down at the base of there. Going to check us out. So you can see with a bit of sunshine, becoming a little bit more active. See a bit more grooming going on. I just can't resist taking a picture of the one with the sleepy eyes. We'll give it a little bit longer. Hopefully they might start playing as they warm up. Oh, hi, Bulleray. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Bulleray would like to know, a reclaimed termite mound like this one, is it called a den, like a hyena den, or is it referred to as another name? In all the reading I've done on mongooses, it's generally referred to as a residence. I even heard it called a den, and that's possibly because they have multiple residences within their territory, but then so do hyenas. So I don't know. I've never heard it called a mongoose den, but a mongoose residence. So you can start seeing there's a bit more grooming going on, a bit more jumping around. Oh, stretch. Oh, that looked good. Morning, Smiles. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari. As I was saying a bit earlier, there will be migration of males and... Smiles would like to know, because they fight with other businesses of mongoose, does this mean they interbreed? So, Smiles, what will happen is there'll be an alpha pair, and once they die, either the next ranking female will take over, but there is migration between the different businesses, but not a group. It'll be normally one individual at a time, and then that individual will either be accepted or chased away. It just depends on the situation. So there is possibly some inbreeding, but I don't think a lot, because they do migrate between troops, but not as a group. So you won't get 3 or 4 moving together. It's normally one mongoose that will migrate to another troop or business. Oh. So there's that social grooming, allo grooming. It's so important in social animals, especially social predators. So while the others are all relaxing and grooming and basking in the sun, there's the one poor chap on top who's keeping a lookout, making sure everyone's safe. Hi, Claire and Billy Joe. Claire from Florida, I think, and Billy Joe from New York. I might have got that mixed up, sorry guys. But they would like to know, how big can a termite mound get? They seem huge. Well, the highest termite mound I've ever seen was in northern Botswana, and it was probably from the ground about 4.5, 5 meters, so around 18 foot high is the biggest one I've ever seen. These ones probably around 2 meters, so 7, 8 foot, somewhere around there. But I have seen monster ones. And you must remember, they're like an iceberg. 2/3 are still underground. So it's amazing now. When we first arrived here, this was a very unrelaxed group of dwarf mongoose. And now after we sat here and we were very quiet when we were speaking in the beginning, now I'm talking normally and they're just continuing on with their morning routine. So guys, I know we've been sitting here for quite a while, so I'm going to put it up to you. Should we stay a little bit longer with the business of mongoose, or should we continue on to see what else we can find? And you can send what you'd like to do via email to questions@wildearth.tv, or you can use the hashtag SafariLIVE if you're on Twitter. Morning, Blair from British Columbia in Canada. Welcome on the Sunrise Safari. Blair would like to know, how long would it take to build a termite mound like the one the mongoose are currently in? I would probably guess this termite mound's a couple of 100 years old, Blair. It would have taken a couple of 100 years, hundreds of years for this to get to that size. Very difficult to determine exactly how long, because it could have been dormant for 100 years, 50 years already, but it would have taken 200, 300, maybe 400 years to build a termite mound of that size. You can see quite a lot more movement going on now. So we're going to sit here for a little bit longer. Hopefully they might get active, so we're just going to stand by here. In the meantime, we're going to cross across to James and see what the short man's been up to.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Wendy. We greet you with good news. We have just seen a giraffe. That's not the good news, although it was for us. Unfortunately, it disappeared. just following up on tracks on leopard tracks. You're on the wrong channel. We're following up on leopard tracks. Looks like quite fresh female tracks from this morning. And we are we've tossed Scott off the vehicle, handed him a radio, and he's on the tracks on foot. And so they're sort of heading in a southerly direction. And we're going to go around the side and see if we can't pick them up that side. I hope you've had a good time with Brent so far. No doubt he was as entertaining as he always is. I'm on Ingwe Alley. So we're on a road called Ingwe Alley, which means Leopard Alley, Shangaan. I've yet to see a leopard here. Brent and Scott tell me they're quite common in the area. Seeing is believing, as they say. Quite a bumpy road. So Brian has lost 3 of his teeth, but that's okay. Do wonders with surgery these days. So when you're tracking a leopard like this, it's difficult to know how fast you should move or how slowly. If you move quickly, you obviously miss some of the tracks that might be on the road. And if you drive too slowly or move too slowly, they obviously disappear. I don't think we're going quite in the right direction on this road, so we're going to move a little bit faster. And interestingly, the tracks do come from where I heard those monkeys' alarm calling, so maybe they really are very fresh. Scott's headed off there. We're going to sort of make our way in that general direction, depending on what roads we can find. Just make sure she hasn't popped out here. Multiple answers to our question on warthogs and the collective noun thereof. So it clearly wasn't a question that was nearly difficult enough. There were so many of you. There was Marianne, Gerda, Sharon, and 3 others whose names slip me at this moment while I look for the leopard. But the correct collective noun, of course, is sounder, and that goes for any kind of pig. A lot of the collective nouns that people use are not, in fact, biological terms. They are terms that we use because we think they are quite amusing or quite useful, such as journey of giraffe. That's not a biological term. What else? A leap of leopards. Well, that doesn't really exist at all. My favorite is a parliament of owls. Also doesn't really exist, but it's a great term. So just driving very carefully along this road to see if the tracks don't come out. Well, trying to keep an eye out in some of the trees and on the ground and all about. Down here. Probably tracks of Karula. Again, I have yet to see this fabled animal that you have also spoken so fondly of. This is, of course, the great injustice in the world. But with any luck, today will be the day. Hopefully it's sort of going to settle down as the heat builds. Quite nice and warm now. As you can see, I'm in my shirt sleeves. Brian's taken off half a layer, so it must be volcanic in temperature. See all these pans here. Yeah. We just look to the right here. A pan is a sort of natural piece of land that would hold water because the clay is quite thick or quite dense. The soil is dense, and so it will retain water. Normally, this time of year, these pans hold water, but because of the lack of rain, there's really very little that, very few of the pans that are holding any water at all at the moment. Hello, Scott.
Good morning. you doing? James?
Good.
Hello, everyone. How you doing?
Is she going along the road?
No.
He's fine. He's highly trained. And one of the things that a lot of the rangers in the area do when we are training is we walk the reserves unarmed with a radio, much like Scott's doing, for about 10 days. And the idea behind that is to learn that animals here are not inherently dangerous. Okay, I'll finish the discussion just now. We're gonna cross across to Brent. I think he's got some hyena for you.
Welcome back, everyone. There's some excitement going on. We heard a jackal alarm calling from a distance, and then this hyena just came running through the bush and checking this drainage line. And we also heard what could be a distress call of a small antelope. So I'm pretty sure this hyena heard it as well, and it's doing the same thing we're doing at the moment. It's checking this drainage line for possibly a leopard that's made a kill. So quite exciting. Not 100% sure what's going on at the moment, but this hyena came careering through the bush, and there's a second hyena coming as well that I didn't see just now. So they're onto something. There's two hyenas. We just saw one running through here, and now they seem to be checking this drainage line very carefully. So I think we're going to do the same. Just going to wait for the second hyena to pass. They probably, with their sense of smell, might have a better chance of finding something than us. But it was a very distinct sort of distress call. Then we heard a jackal alarming as well. There we go. There's the hyena. It's on the move again. As I said, they're running around here. We only saw one initially, and now we found a second. Excitement. This hyena's going to run. It's running up on the edge here. The other one's in the drainage line. But it is quite warm already for a hyena to be just running around. Just going to speed up a little bit. Generally got a good idea what's going on with their hearing. So there we go, nose to the ground, just trying to smell. So we've got one hyena that's walking up the drainage line to the right, and this one that's walking on the road. Looks like they're both trying to cover as much distance as possible. And you see how nervous they are even when a hornbill walks up to them. So they obviously think something's in this area, and I'm going to go with the hyenas of being experts at sniffing out leopard and kills. We're going to try to stick with this hyena as much as possible. If we do lose the hyena, which I think we might where it's going now, we're definitely going to have to check this area very, very carefully. off into the bush there. The other hyena's off to our right. I'm going to check the road carefully, see if I can find any tracks, and then maybe head back down into that drainage line and go for a little walk. So I'm just going to check to the bend in the road. I'm going to head back that way. We were in this area very early this morning and there were no tracks around. So if we find any tracks, we definitely know they're from today. But I still think the sound was coming from this direction here, down towards the drainage line. But I'm just sort of dotting my I's and crossing my T's. It's just the hyena tracks coming this way. So what I might do first is it looked like a small breeding herd of buffalo was heading towards the dam at the same time, but I was very focused on trying to see what these hyenas were up to. So we're going to go have a look at those buffalo and then switch off and listen. Hearing is such an important part of being able to find animals. And then if we get nothing from listening, I think what we'll do is we'll follow that first hyena we saw, go off-road up the drainage line.
Very good morning, all stations in out for short activity. Are there any updates?
Just a couple of Duggar boys around all points, nothing else. Stand by here and listen. Got some buffalo over there and some zebra over there. Just listening very carefully at the moment. Just hoping that hyena possibly finds where if it is a leopard, where it is. I mean, it could have been a small duck being grabbed by a large bird of prey like a martial eagle that could have caused that noise that we heard as well. And you can see that's a small breeding herd. There's a couple of cows in there. It's not a group of bulls. They've come down to drink and now they're departing again. Whereas the bulls at this time of the morning would be coming down and becoming stationary. Doesn't look like there are any calves. There might be a small offshoot of a much bigger group. another zebra that's come down to drink as well. But it's very nervous. Barely, no, running off. Barely came down toward his edge and something spooked it. There's something going on in the neighborhood, but what we haven't been quite able to work out yet. Hi, Anna Marie Sutton. Good morning and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. Anna Marie would like to know, why do hyenas have sloped backs? Anna Marie, it's because they're especially developed like that, those very big, powerful forequarters, that they're able to lift very large pieces of prey. So if they're scavenging, they can grab a big piece of meat and then run off. And also, it enables them to have incredible stamina, that they are able to keep going and going and going. And that's why they have that slope back design. It's for energy efficiency. See, now there's an impala in front of us, and they don't seem too upset, which is a bit worrying. I think we're going to go check around. We were quite far away when we heard those different calls. So we're going to check now. We're going to leave Sydney's Dam, which is across our northern boundary in Buffelshoek, although we do have a nice open vista on it from the boundary. Check around a little bit deeper into this drainage line. This dude, I saw one guy score.
We are live. We are live. So, sorry, everyone. We came back to you quite suddenly there. I'm not sure what happened to Brent. Probably something out in space, as we say, a monkey wrench left over from an initial Russian incursion into the outer atmosphere. But we are back here. We're still looking for tracks of the leopard. They're in the block somewhere. Scott is still on foot. And I just wanted to finish that discussion that we were having. We spend a lot of time on foot out here, and because of that, we do know how to respond to animals if we see them on foot. But the key to it is that the animals out here are not inherently dangerous. When I was doing training, and I've done a lot of it over the years, as soon as anyone started to refer to an animal as dangerous, I would say to them, there is no such thing as a dangerous animal. There is only an animal that is potentially dangerous, and an animal that potential for danger turns into danger when an animal becomes threatened. And as long as you are able to understand what would make an animal threatened, they are not dangerous to us. So let's take an example. Scott is tracking a leopard. If Scott were to see that leopard, it's highly unlikely. Well, first of all, he'd have to be walking very silently for it not to have seen him first. A leopard doesn't see a human being as a traditional prey species, and a leopard also will normally just disappear if it feels threatened. If you corner a leopard and you then persist in pursuing it, you get yourself into a lot of trouble. Scott's not going to do that because he knows what will make that leopard do that. A buffalo, and I've discussed this as well with you, a buffalo is the prime example of, the hunters the big brave hunters who like to shoot animals will tell you that buffalo are the most dangerous animals in Africa. But they might be if you're trying to stick a 458 lead slug in their heads. Certainly they may well become very dangerous. I would too. But if in the absence of hunting, buffalo can be very passive, and I've been very close to them on foot without noticing them, and they don't react in an aggressive fashion at all. So the trick to this is to understand what makes animals feel threatened. And we don't have, animals out here have evolved with human beings. And this is a crucial thing to understand. So for the last 2 million years, since our ancestors diverged from those of the chimps and we came down onto the savannas, since that time, we have been throwing sticks and stones and trying to hunt animals to the extent that we've developed a relationship where they see us as an apex predator. Even lions, who are, infinitely stronger than we are, still perceive us as a threat because we are the apex predator. And as long as we behave like that, we understand that, we can walk around here in relative safety. Me walking through this bush today for the next 3 hours and being harmed by an animal are infinitely smaller than were I to be trying to cross a road in Los Angeles or London or downtown Helsinki. So in a roundabout way, what I'm telling you is Scott is perfectly safe. Come up with any further tracks at this stage. So I suspect she's in this sort of region here. We've tried very hard over the last few days to try and predict the behavior of the leopards in this area, but we haven't been particularly successful at it. Up to this dry pan here. No, I'm not. I see we do have another option here. We're going to go down this road here. Let's go down here. A little bit of indecision there. Sorry about that. So many great things to see out here. And before we sign off today, I'm going to try and give you another impossibly hard tree quiz. None of you have you've so far beaten me every time, so I'm hoping with the morning and the slightly quieter audience I might be able to stump you, but I have a tree in mind. There it is. Here we have it. Another example of a tree that will, in the absence of elephants, grow into a fairly big individual, but with elephant presence, it will normally not get much more than that scraggly example you've just seen. Every time I give you a clue, you get it right, so you're not getting any clues for this one either. We'll have a quick taste, show you what it tastes like. It's here.
Delicious.
It's it is the sensation is It's completely dried my mouth out so that I can barely speak to you. So, I wouldn't recommend that. If you eventually come out here and visit us, don't eat this tree. The lucky elephants don't have to speak to each other. Or not using their tongues anyway. Ooh. That wasn't a tremendously pleasant experience. I'm sure my voice will come back eventually as we drive along. David in Las Vegas. Welcome to the morning game drive. You have asked, what is my favorite insect and will I eat it on camera? I'm going to answer the latter question first. No, I will not eat an insect on camera. I don't think I'll eat an insect off camera either. I could be induced to eat a termite, maybe. But my favorite insect are some of the bugs, which are, you get something called, not a bug, a beetle, called a fruit chaffer. And they come in all sorts of beautiful colors. And those are my favorite ones. They're only around in the summertime. And I'm definitely not going to eat one of them. Certainly there is a tradition of eating insects. Well, I have eaten some insects out here. We just north of here you get those mapani worms, which are the larva of an emperor moth. So it's a caterpillar. And like I've described before, not particularly delicious, a very important source of protein for people out here. Gamey sawdust, I'd say, is the best way to describe it. Have a quick squiz at that rather glorious looking green tree there to our right. Get into a position where Brian can film it in the glory further. Get it, Brian. That is called a weeping boerbean. An odd name, so named because the red flowers, it produces a flush of beautiful red flowers in the summertime. They drip their nectar down underneath the tree. And I mean, if you've got it growing on a patio or something like a veranda, the ground underneath will become quite sticky underfoot. And that's why it's called a weeping boerbean. A boer is the Afrikaans word for farmer. I'm not sure why it's called a boerbean. That there's probably some number of stories behind it, but I'm not sure what they are. Scotia brachypatella. Often grow on termite mounds. And like I said, termite mounds tend to have very well aerated soil, and it's obviously very nutritious from all the termite dung and saliva and the fungus gardens that the termites have grown. It's a really good place for a tree to grow. Gerda, you have tried to identify the tree that I showed you. as a weeping wattle. Alas and alack, no, it is not. The leaves are much smaller and the bark is much harsher. Then we've also had an answer that for acacia tree from Judith. And Judith, I'm afraid it isn't an acacia, but it's quite a nice starting point. You'll notice that there were no thorns on it, and so therefore it cannot be an acacia unless it's an Australian acacia, which it is. Some of the Australian acacias don't have thorns anymore. In fact, we don't refer to, or the botanists have changed the name of our acacias to two other genuses. I have since forgotten what they are, but the Australian trees are the ones that are now called acacia, but nobody would know what I was talking about if I used the new name, so we just keep calling them acacias. Not sure why the Aussies should have the honour. So the general answer to the almost impossible tree quiz is weeping wattle. No, that's why we call it the almost impossible tree quiz. It's not a weeping wattle. A little clue for you would be to look at acacias that don't have thorns. Not a bush willow. Fever tree, we've had an answer from Michelle. Fever tree, it's not a fever tree. Fever tree is an acacia tree with long white thorns and very yellow bark. So named because people thought it grows in swamps, and that's what people thought were causing malaria. Not popped out here. Brian, do you have any idea how strong our signal will be in the drainage line? Not good. Okay. So we won't go up the drainage line. We'll go the other way. See if she doesn't pop out here. See the beautiful blue of the winter sky. And as I said the other day, sorry about the wind, we're unlikely to see too much in the way of cloud for the next 3 months, which is rather nice for us. This is the best time. If you're thinking about a trip to the Lowveld, this is an excellent time. My favorite time.
Hey, firm. Hi guys, welcome back. We're still scouring this area. I've just been for a long walk through this drainage line and I found a single male leopard track. And I walked crisscross, I checked all possible trees. I heard a Franklin now alarm calling out this way. So I've come to check, only hyena tracks so far, but there has to be a leopard somewhere in this area. Looking for a tree climbing duiker. I'm pretty pretty sure that's what I heard was a Dika distress alarm call that it's been. You hear that when it's actually been grabbed by a predator, and it's quite a sort of chilling sound. It's sort of a definitely an animal in distress. What I'm doing now is I'm checking all the sort of highly thick green trees. I was checking them on foot earlier. Check this one here in case they have managed to always, but I can hear them. That is a sound very upset with something. In this tree.
Can we come down for us and cross the wall?
Oh, there. That's what the babblers were upset about. They were mobbing the rose eagle owl. Here we go. He's landed in that knockdown now. To those of you who might have been on the Sunset Safari with me when we saw Ghana, male leopard with an impala kill. They did the same thing to him when he was in the tree. So when I heard that, I was like, oh, here we go. But fork-tailed drongas arrived. That's the one that's going to be probably be the first to actually make bodily contact.
Yeah, and then you can go around in front of the camp again if you like and come around here.
So we still just keeping quiet. Keeping quiet. We are obviously watching what's happening with the owl and the bird.